On the 11th of September 2001, I was sitting toward the back of Mrs. W's English class in 6th grade when an announcement on the school's PA system rang out. I can't remember exactly word for word what the announcement said, but the woman essentially said, "Attention faculty and students, we've just been notified that there's been a terrible accident at the World Trade Center. We're currently watching a live news broadcast and encourage everyone to do the same." And so our teacher turned on the classroom's television and we all sat and watched as smoke billowed from one of these two buildings with which I was unfamiliar, being 11 years old. Also, being 11 years old, I took this as an opportunity to nosedive into a book with which I was obsessed called The Thief of Always by Clive Barker, which I'm still waiting for Tim Burton to turn into a live-action film, but I digress. Everyone in the classroom watched on a live news feed as the second plane went into the tower, and I will never forget my teacher gasping and saying, "Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God." And I remember tears coming down her face. Just being so young, just being like, I have no idea what's going on. Why are all the adults so upset by this right now? Although I didn't understand the gravity of the situation at the time, I never forgot the events of that day. Never forget is a phrase of remembrance that I feel has been unintentionally hollowed out as time has passed, and now it doesn't seem to hold any real weight when it is said.
High school, Brother Rob's like, "DeStefano, you're expelled." I was like, "Oh, I forgot," He was like, "Never forget." I was like, "I forgot." So, what are you going to do?
But every year when the 11th comes around again and my social media feed is filled with memes either mocking the events of 9/11 or various forms of memes saying "never forget," I'm always reminded of what I think the sentiment "never forget" should mean. On the surface, it seems like two separate issues. One, thousands of Americans needlessly died in a tragedy. And the second thing is that we were mercilessly attacked by Islamic extremists. But I think it's much deeper than that. I don't know if anyone else really remembers this, but even as a kid, I remember that for at least a month, there was a real sense of unity throughout this country. I remember that everyone had taken out that little American flag that they had printed out in the newspaper and taped it in their windows. I know for a fact that I had many neighbors in my neighborhood that were either Democrat or Republican, and I also know that my own house was split Democrat and Republican, and yet every single house, including ours, had that American flag taped up in our window. Opposing sides were not constantly at each other's throats over political issues and disagreement. People were overly friendly to each other, even if they were strangers on the street, and family and friends who knew each other were consoling each other throughout the event and the aftermath. And everyone's eyes were constantly glued to the television or the radio to hope that someone would come forth and tell all of us that we are going to move together in the same direction as one country. And that's what we shouldn't forget. It took a horrible, murderous, inhuman attack on us to make us realize that we can agree to disagree and still unite under the same banner. Whether we are discussing ideologies or intuitions, we're not always going to agree on important issues. But at the very least, we can compromise and understand that we're not going to agree, but we're all living in the same house, so to speak, with each other. At the end of the day, we're all Americans and all citizens of the same country. The unity didn't last long, and soon the divisiveness began, and at this point, it seems like we're never going to have a taste of that again. Do I have any water left? Please tell me I have water left. A drop. It'll do. The only way that we're going to be able to find a singular aim is if we try our hardest to understand each other and find middle ground. And that's much easier said than done. I think right now we're stuck in a situation in which the majority of people in America, which is made up of moderate rights, moderate lefts, centrists, and people who couldn't give a tumpany fuck about our political conundrum, are all caught in a crossfire between the extremists who are so empty and hollow as individuals that they cannot help but be filled up by the wants and desires and needs of the collective, which is, can't seem to do anything except shadow project its own hatred and want for violence onto its enemies. Forgive me if this is too black-pilled, but I'm convinced that right now if we were attacked by China or Russia, at least half of our country would be immediately throwing up a truce flag saying, look, we don't really like this place anyway. You can just kill all the white Christians who are flying the American flag and just leave us, 2020 BLM trans pride flag waving people who love socialism. Just leave us alone and let us live. It's totally fine. Kumbaya,
America deserved 9/11, dude. Fuck it. I'm saying it.
We're there to partner.
Like, we fucking totally brought it on ourselves, dude. Holy shit. We did. We fucking did. In a video game, whatever, hypothetically, politically, we fucking did, man. We did. Holy shit. Holy fucking shit.
And so I guess I can't even rely on a foreign invasion to snap us out of this Dostoevskian problem creation obsession. But what I do know is that the only way that we could possibly avoid massive civil unrest, which we are heading toward, and I predict we will be ensconced in it in 3 election cycles or less. Mark my words. I hope they're wrong. Is if we actually take the time to try and understand each other. And I have ideas of how we could apply this in real life. But we have to find compromise by emphasizing personal freedom and liberty rather than giving authoritarian powers to our preferred form of government, which aligns with our cultural and social morals and beliefs. I think the latter leads nowhere but mass enslavement, mass incarceration, mass starvation, and mass genocide. Whereas the former, I think if we acted it out, we might find that it's exactly what we needed to do. And it's the only thing we can do. Because killing each other on massive scales doesn't really seem to progress the world. It seems to hold us back for various amounts of time, sometimes thousands of years. And so, as a left-leaning centrist, whatever the hell that means these days, I want to say we once figured out how to set aside our differences and become an undivided house. And I think we can do that again. And that's what we should never forget. Become gold, you living stones.